So properties of 0 and 1. So these questions are really pretty low-hanging fruit that we should all get correct, but they are missed sometimes. So let's go over them and just make sure we know what to do with these types of questions. So we have, I guess, 7 different little examples here. Okay, so 1 raised to any power is 1. So what we mean there is it could be whether it's 1 to the third or 1 to the 300th. Right? 1 raised to any power always equals 1, right? Because all you're doing is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. You're just going to keep going for however far they will ask you. So 1 raised to any power is 1. You got to know that. Multiplicative identity property. So knowing what the actual property says is not hard at all. It just, so it's not like a complicated concept. The multiplicative identity property just says that any quantity multiplied by 1 is equal to itself, right? So whether it's 3 times 1 or 300 times 1, it always just equals itself, right? 300 times 1 is 300. So that's multiplicative identity property. Similarly, this isn't a property, but any quantity divided by itself equals itself, right? And so you might get stuff with variables. So you might see something like 7x minus 2x divided by 1, right? And then just knowing that you just need to deal with the numerator, and so go 7x minus 2x equals 5x divided by 1, and then that equals 5x, yeah? And that's all you got to know. So those are all the properties of 1, so really nothing very hard to understand. Probably just have to memorize that multiplicative identity property. Means any quantity multiplied by 1 is equal to itself. And once you're there, that's all the stuff you got to know for the 1s. For the 0s, similar. Property of 0, the sum of any number and 0 is that number, right? So 5 plus 0 is 5. It's the other number, not the 0. 15 plus 0 is 15. So, not complicated math at all. But there's what you got to know for property of 0. It also applies to multiplication, right? So that when, you're saying the property of 0 will say the product of a number and a 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 500 times 0 is 0. And that's your property of 0. So really, really pretty simple. All right, on this one, people can get more confused on these. Okay, anything that's divided by 0. So you have 0 in the numerator, right? So if you have like 7 divided by 0, what does that equal, right? And usually where people get confused is it 0 or is it undefined, right? And so anytime you have a 0 in the numerator, it is undefined. As opposed to, we look one more line down, if 0 is in the numerator, so if instead of 7 divided by 0, it's 0 divided by 7, that does equal 0. There you go. Right, so that's the key one to remember. Again, not overly complicated, but people do get this one wrong sometimes. If the 0 is in the denominator, the bottom part of the fraction, that is undefined. If it's in the numerator, the top part of the fraction, then it's 0. And you will definitely get a question where those two are the two options that you would be considering. And then finally, right, we remember at the beginning of this video we said 1 raised to any power is 1. Well, 0 raised to any power equals 0, right? And so if you think of it, if it's 0 to the third, what they're asking you is what is 0 times 0 times 0, right? And if instead of 0 to the third, it's 0 to the 300th, really still the same thing, right? Is you're just multiplying it 300 times in a row rather than 3, but you're still going to get the same answer, which is 0.